Champions aren't exactly known for their offense, but frightened and flat-footed are some of the easiest conditions to get in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and they stack with each other. So today I thought I'd help you guys build a champion that can easily inflict both conditions. And because Lost Omens Firebrands came out, this is the perfect time for us to build a pirate. So here is the Dread Pirate King. Let's dive in. So for today's ancestry, we're building an orc. There's a few reasons for that, but we'll get to that when we get to ancestry feats. And for our heritage, what better one than the Undine? Since as a pirate, we're going to be near water a lot. For background, we're going sailor. We can't very well be a pirate king without being able to pilot our own ship, now can we? So, we need sailing lore. Plus this will give us the underwater marauder skill feat, allowing us to fight effectively in water. And of course, we are building a champion here, and we're going to go with the Tyrant Cause. We are building around the flat-footed condition here, and what better way than to give them a choice between taking mental damage or making themselves flat-footed. The starting stats for this build should be Strength 18, Dexterity 10, Constitution 12, Intelligence 12, Wisdom 10, and Charisma 16. So for our first feat, we're going to go with Iron Repercussions. Now, when enemies refuse to kneel from our Iron Command, we can do persistent mental damage to them, giving them even more of an incentive to kneel before us, and thus become flat-footed. Then for our ancestry feat, since we are an Undine, we're going to take Brine Soul. Once per day, when a creature that has blood and is not at its maximum hit points hits you, you can use a reaction to salt their wounds with your blood. They must make a Fortitude save against your class DC. If they fail, they take 1d6 acid damage and are sickened 1. If they critically fail, they take 2d6 acid damage and are sickened 2. For second level, I've gone with Deity's Domain, and we want the Travel Domain here. This will give us the Agile Feat Focus spell. Thus we can gain a 5-foot status bonus to speed and ignore difficult terrain. We can also step or stride as part of casting this spell. We are wearing heavy armor, but we don't want to be super slow in this build either. Thus using a focus point to get a little more speed is going to help. Then of course we are building a Pirate King, so we need to take our Pirate Dedication. We're already trained in sailing lore, so we're going to get Expert here. This is essentially Sudden Charge, except that we don't get the attack unless we boarded or disembarked from a boat or a similar vehicle during the movement. We can also make an acrobatics check to use a rope for this. At level 3, of course, we do get our Divine Ally. And normally I would go with Shield Ally here. But for this build, we're going to need a hand free for a lot of our feats. So using a shield won't help us here. Instead, we're going to go with Steed Ally. There is a particular mount that we want for this build, which is one of the reasons that we went Orc Ancestry. But I'll talk about that when we get to level 9. In the meantime, we'll talk about some general feats. Of course, you will want to take Die Hard, Toughness, and Canny Acumen for your reflex saves. For the final 2 general feats, you'll want to take Ancestral Paragon so you can pick up Orc Ferocity, allowing us to stay up at 1 hit point if we need to. And for a feat we're going to take later on. You'll also want to pick up Fleet for a little more speed. For level 4, this build is about fear, so of course you're going to want to pick up Aura of Despair. This will keep enemies frightened as long as they're within 15 feet of you. Then I've got a new one from Lost Omens Firebrands with Broadside Buckos. During daily preparations, choose up to 5 allies. If an enemy is within reach of you and at least 2 of those allies, it is flat-footed against you. And for our level 5 ancestry feat, we're going to take Beast Trainer. We become trained in nature and get the Train Animal skill feats. This one isn't hugely important, it's just a prerequisite for some other ancestry feats we're going to take later. But being able to train animals is a fun thing to do. Okay, for today's first team report, unfortunately, we really don't have a lot of our good fear options yet. But what we do have is something a little bit better. Brian Soul will let us sicken a foe once per day, which arguably is better than frightening. But we can only use that once per day, and only against creatures that have blood and have taken damage. So intimidation is still going to be our bread and butter. Of course, for creatures like constructs that are immune to mental effects and have no blood, we're going to have to rely on our flat-footed option, which we have a ton of, even at this level. Grappling, tripping, our champion's reaction, flanking, and even just surrounding our enemies with allies are all ways that we can get flat-footed at this level. Grappling, tripping, and our champion's reaction are going to be the ones we want to use the most, since those are going to make the foes flat-footed to the entire party. And all of these options will work extremely well with our Aura of Despair, as that will keep enemies frightened as long as they are in the area. But grappling is going to be our bread and butter, because if they fail on their escape check, then they're not going anywhere. This is why we really can't use a shield in this build, unless of course we're using a grappling weapon. In that case, go ahead and pick up a shield. But you'll still want Steed Ally for this build for a different reason, which I'll get into later. For level 6, we're going to want to take Loyal Warhorse to make our steed stronger. And for the free archetype at this level, I've got another new Fire Branch feat called Watch This. As a reaction, you can verbally commit to making an attack on your next turn against the same enemy that an ally missed. If you hit, you deal additional damage equal to twice the number of weapon damage dice. Next up is Attack of Opportunity, so we can hit foes when they try to get up after we trip them, or use our champion's reaction. Then of course we will take Walk the Plank. For 2 actions, we can demoralize an opponent. If we succeed, we can force them to move up to their speed, and it does so as part of this activity. We can't force them to move into a harmful space, like one where they'll provoke our Attack of Opportunity, but we can force them to move right into our Aura of Despair. Moving on to level 9, this is where we'll take Dragon Grip. That will allow us to have a Riding Drake as a mount, and that has Intimidation as well as a Breath Weapon, making it the perfect mount for Dread Pirates. Then we'll take Imposing Destrier to make our Drake even stronger, followed by another new feat, Hook 'em, allowing us to grapple targets with a rope. Next up is Pale Horse, allowing our Drake to do passive damage while we're mounted on it. Then of course we are a leader, so we're going to take our second dedication at this level with the Martial dedication. So if we're not already an expert in Intimidation, we get that now. In addition, we also gain a Marshal's Aura and a 10-foot emanation that gives our allies a +1 status bonus on saves against fear. For our Ancestry feat at level 13, we'll take Ferocious Beasts. This gives our Drake the Orc Ferocity reaction, allowing it to stay up at 1 hit point if it would ever go down. Then we'll pick up Divine Reflexes, so we can use our Champion's reaction and another reaction in the same round. Like for instance, our Champion's reaction and Attack of Opportunity. Then the last new feat from Firebrands in this build, Devrin's Cunning Stance. This is just like other martial stances, except we use Deception to enter it, and this one gives a +1 status bonus to all skill checks. So that's our athletics checks and our intimidation checks, as well as any battle skill checks your allies want to use. At level 16, it's Auspicious Mount to make our Drake specialized. And we're probably going to want to go with the Bully specialization here to make it better at athletics, but more importantly, intimidation. Next up is Dread Martial Stance to give us and our allies a little more damage and give us another way of frightening foes. Our last Ancestry feat for this build is going to be Tidal Shield. For 2 actions, once per day, we can gain a +4 to our AC until the end of our next turn. Allies that are adjacent to you also gain a +2 bonus to their AC as long as they are adjacent to you. We can keep this effect up for up to 5 rounds. When anyone receiving a bonus from Tidal Shield would take damage, you can reduce that damage by 40. But if we do, Tidal Shield ends. This is just a good way to protect the crew from enemies that have high attack bonuses. At level 18, Cadence Call and Tactical Cadence will allow us to quicken allies. And since we have tactical cadence, they can use the extra action to stride or strike, and they aren't slowed 1 for using it. Alright, time for level 20. At level 20, we'll want to take Fiendish Mount. That will increase our Drake's hit points, but more importantly, allow it to fly. Thus, we can now more easily deal with flying enemies and survey our ship if we need to. And the last feat for this build is going to be Topple Foe. As a reaction, if an ally hits a foe that we're both adjacent to, we can attempt to trip that target. So yeah, this is just another way of us getting the flat-footed condition. And we won't take a multiple attack penalty because we are using it as a reaction. For Teamwork Report number 2, now we have a lot of our fear stuff. We have our Drake Animal Companion, which can intimidate them. We have Walk the Plank, which allows us to not only frighten our enemies, but also make them walk right into our Aura of Despair. And we've got both of our martial stances, which will be useful for frightening in different situations. Also, our mount is way stronger now, and it can fly, as well as do damage to foes simply by us being mounted and near them. Overall, enemies do not want to be near us. And if they're spending their actions moving away from us, that means they're not spending actions attacking, which is always a good thing. Plus, we can now quicken allies and trip foes as a reaction rather than spending an action on our turn, assuming an ally hits. And remember, because of the feats we took earlier, we can have a speed of 30 feet, making us faster than a lot of champions. And that's going to do it for this build. If you guys want to see more teamwork builds like this, you can check out these videos here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.